So now we will talk about scope and sequence. What is scope and sequence? The scope is the breadth and depth of content to be covered in a curriculum at any given time, over a week, a year, school student's life, and all that you do in a given period. So then the sequence is the order in which content is presented to learners over time, the order in which you do it. So we'll have like this big scope of language materials from pre-reading all the way through, and then we'll have the sequence in those steps of materials in which you will present to them, and that is the sequence. To expand on the rationale for language, Montessori language, I'm going to read this rationale that was written by Lauren Mitchell. Language plays a foundational role in the Montessori program primary curriculum. The skills and concepts that are acquired and internalized from this language curriculum prepare the student for success in all other areas of education and social interaction. Language itself could arguably be considered the foundation of human civilization as a whole, so it is only natural to consider it a keystone in academia. The Montessori language curriculum is designed with this natural progression in mind, and uses a variety of concepts to direct both the structure of the classroom and the creation of materials for the students to use. One of these concepts is that of sensitive periods. Maria Montessori, the founder of our methodology, found that throughout their development, children reach a series of stages in which they are particularly ready to learn from their environment in different ways. From birth till the age of 6, Montessori identified 11 sensitive periods, like refinement of the senses, movement, and small objects, for example. Each of these periods represent an aspect of the child's environment that is of particular interest to them, and draws from the child a passion that is unique to that time. This child-derived commitment allows for a period of time in which the concept or skill is unconsciously internalized. After this period, the sensitivity to the subject is gone, and concepts will need to be actively learned and studied with great time and attention. In the Montessori curriculum, materials given to the child are created with these affinities in mind. Language materials like the sandpaper letters appeal to the refinement of the senses, since they have an interesting texture as a child traces them with their fingers. Language works that incorporate small objects like those for matching or letter association are incredibly attractive to the child in that sensitive period. And circle time songs that involve rhyming, an essential aspect of language development, are incredibly stimulating to the child in their sensitive period for music. Autoeducation is another concept that is used in the language curriculum at a Montessori school. It refers to the way in which children are capable of teaching themselves if provided the freedom and tools to do so. The materials in the language area of a Montessori classroom are designed to isolate a singular goal for their work, limiting the amount of difficulty that the work requires. The works also have elements built into it that allows the student to correct himself, called control of error. These can be seen in the way word-building materials only have the movable alphabet letters that are required for that work, instead of all 26, or in the 3-part cards that provide one set of cards as a check or a correct match between the other 2 sets. These elements essentially make the directress a mere observer in the child's natural learning process. In autoeducation, the child is the active participant, not the teacher. Another concept that guides the creation of the Montessori language curriculum is the idea of scope and sequence. Scope refers to the umbrella idea of what is being taught, from the simplest seed of an idea to the grand product of cognitive awareness and skill mastery. Sequence refers to the organization and timing of when works are introduced to the children. It is in this way that the classroom is organized to prepare the student for success. Shelves are organized top to bottom from concrete to abstract, and left to right from simple to complex. In this way, the child grows with the materials, from using the movable alphabet for sound identification through the building of complete sentences. Montessori's concept of indirect preparation can be found in the language curriculum in the way that materials do not merely address one skill, but many. For example, in the language area, materials are sequenced for left to right coordination, the direction we read in English. Therefore, a puzzle matching work would be set up in two separate containers to have the student match left pieces to a two-part puzzle with their right piece counterparts. Indirect preparation can also be seen in the practical life in sensorial areas where sand and water are poured left to right and spoons and tweezers are held for a future pencil grasp. In classroom songs, poems, and discussions, students are indirectly prepared for storytelling order, letter sounds, repetition, and rhyme. So here we're talking about that, the pencil grasp. If you have already taken, I'm just going to do a little side note here. If you have already taken sensorial or practical life, then you know that it's all about this, how we hold tweezers, how we pick things up, how we hold a spoon, how the wrist turn. All of this is preparation of the hand for writing. Of course, this carefully prepared environment with its intricately designed materials would not be possible without constant, diligent observation. The skill of observation is so important for the Montessori director or directress because in doing so, he or she can determine the sensitive periods of his or her students, the sequence or pace at which they individually need to work, and identify their interests or redemonstration requirements. So this is one of the most important things as being a Montessori teacher is observing. That's why we ask students who are learning to be Montessori teachers to go to different schools and observe how the teacher does circle time, how they present works to the child, what language they are using, what tone are they using, what all of these things. So observation is a very important. When you observe one single child and you could do a 3-period lesson with him, then that uncovers more, and so then you could introduce them possibly the next thing if they have already gotten what you had showed them that first lesson, if they already mastered it or have gotten it down really good, that you think that they will be confident to move on to a new work, then you can show them that. But this is all done through observation, and again, it's one of the most important aspects of being a Montessori teacher. And that means to actually have an eye to really observe, and not just standing in the classroom and having like a blank stare at the walls and say that you're observing. You have to actually go down there and look at how the child is using their fingers, how the child is walking in the classroom. Tells you a lot about their balance. How the child takes a tray off the shelf. So all of these things are super important. They always will lead you to more discovery of that child. Okay. So getting back to the rationale, though it might seem as though there is a great deal going on in this strangely calm and focused Montessori environment, Dr. Montessori identified 4 direct aims of the Montessori primary education: order, concentration, coordination, and independence, otherwise known as OCCI. This is because with these 4 skills, the child is prepared not just for school but for life. Without the concept of order or coordination, the child is unable to pace or sequence themselves, and every area of study, whether math, formulas, language, communication, or history, chronology, becomes inconceivable. Without concentration, the student's personal goals become ever more distressing and tiresome. And finally, without independence, the student cannot truly learn from experience and will undoubtedly tend toward dependency as a member of society. The indirect aims of the classroom are all those skills that an outsider to the Montessori method would identify. In the language area, this would be aims like writing, reading, and comprehension. Maria Montessori diligently observed her students and designed her materials particularly to suit their academic needs. 3 of the most effective materials in the language area are the sandpaper letters, the movable alphabet, and the metal inset. The sandpaper letters are a tactile experience of letter formation for the primary student that allows them to develop muscle memory as they correctly trace each letter, and also association of symbol and sound. The interesting texture allows for control of error and is an excellent tool for use during the sensitive period of refinement of the senses. The movable alphabet allows them to express their thoughts through words, even if they use invented spelling, excitedly writing without truly writing. Finally, the metal insets or shapes that are traced in the motion and direction of which letters will be later written by the child. For example, the triangle shape prepares the student for the formation of the letter A, and the circle shape prepares the student for the formation of letters like D and B. It also enforces pencil control without the pressure of making actual letters. So, if you are already familiar with what the sandpapers are, then fantastic. Then you can have an idea of what we're talking about here. But if not, don't worry. The movable alphabet, sandpaper letters, and the metal inset are all things that will be covered in the course. Montessori's method and materials in the language area are of particular importance for me as a teacher because I have found that confidence and effective communication are essential for not only a successful classroom, but for productive members of society. The language area of a Montessori classroom prepare the child for success, allowing them to teach themselves and learn skills one by one when it is natural, rather all at once. In this way, the language curriculum of the Montessori classroom builds their confidence and allows them to be better communicators, but allows them to better communicate their needs and ideas, whether by verbally speaking up or being able to communicate their thoughts through writing. So that is a lot there. And don't worry if you didn't get some of it. Like I said, we will be going over these concepts and materials in the coming weeks. Okay?